The Nigerian Delta has some of the best agricultural land in Africa, as well as vast oil resources. The area is densely populated by many different tribal groups, including the Ogoni people who have lived there for over 500 years. Several oil companies, including Shell, set up operations in the 1950s, and since then, the land, water, and air have been polluted to such a great extent that the Ogoni people's livelihood is threatened. The most immediate threat to Ogoni people is oil spills, which have damaged their land dramatically. At least 100 pumping stations and pipelines crisscross Ogoni land. The pipelines run over farmland and through villages. Leaks and spills are a common occurrence. From 1970 to 1982, 1,581 oil spill incidences were recorded in the Niger Delta, over 1.5 million gallons of which were a result of Shell's 27 incidents. While Shell runs oil operations in over 100 different countries, 40% of the company's spills were in Nigeria. What little Shell has done to clean up these spills has been delayed and inadequate. As a result of oil spills and industrial waste dumped into the Niger River Delta, fishing as a means of supplying food for the tribe is no longer an option because very few fish remain in the river. The groundwater is contaminated and is not safe for drinking, and the rainwater cannot be collected for drinking because it falls as acid rain. The air has also been severely polluted. The natural gas that is a byproduct of drilling is flared off horizontally from 5 flaring stations, some of which are near homes and villages. Flaring is a process in which the gas is collected in batches and then combusted. More dangerous in the long run is the massive amounts of carbon dioxide created by flaring off gas that could be sold or even donated to the local people for a cooking fuel. The flaring has also been associated with reduced crop yield and plant growth on nearby farms. Shell began drilling for oil in 1958. Ogoni land was not the only area affected by the Nigerian oil rush. The entire coastal region of Nigeria has been drilled for oil. As a result, 90% of Nigerian exports and 80% of government revenue comes from oil. In the preceding 30 years, 30 billion in oil was drawn from Ogoni land. The central government received a portion of the profits. However, none of the money ever reached the people of Ogoni. While Ogoni land was rich in fertile soil at the mouth of the Niger River and rested on one of the largest oil reserves in the world, the Ogoni people lived in poverty for the 30 years of Shell's drilling. They had no electricity, no sewer system, and no water filtration. Schools and hospitals were also non-existent. In August 1990, the Ogoni elders signed the Ogoni Bill of Rights, which called for political control of Ogoni affairs by Ogoni people, control and use of Ogoni economic resources for Ogoni development, adequate and direct representation as of right for Ogoni people in all Nigerian national institutions, and the right to protect the Ogoni environment and ecology from further degradation. That year, the Movement for the Survival of the Ogoni People, a nonviolent action group, was formed. MOSOP, led by its president Ken Saro-Wiwa, a well-known environmental activist, author, and Nobel Peace Prize nominee, published the Ogoni Bill of Rights in 1990. Ken Saro-Wiwa and MOSOP attempted to gain the support of international non-governmental organizations. Early on, MOSOP joined with the Unrepresented Nations and Peoples Organization, which helped MOSOP gain increased international attention, both through the media and through meetings with the United Nations. As the UN's Year of Indigenous People in 1993 approached, MOSOP planned protest actions to continue to push for the demands that had been laid out in the Ogoni Bill of Rights. In 1992, the conflict escalated after 2 years of little progress, targeting an unresponsive national government. MOSOP decided instead to focus its energy on the 3 oil companies operating within the region: Shell, Chevron, and the Nigerian National Petroleum Company. Of the 3, Shell easily had the largest share in the area, and as such, was MOSOP's primary target. The group, supported by and comprised of many smaller Ogoni organizations, presented the companies with an ultimatum demanding $10 billion in damages and royalties to the Ogoni people. as well as an immediate end to all three companies' violence against Ogoni region's environment. MOSOP threatened that if its demands were not met, it would rally the Ogoni people in widespread popular resistance to the company's presence. Despite the ban on public assemblies on January 4, 1993, at the beginning of the Year of Indigenous People, MOSOP organized a massive peaceful protest that over 300,000 Ogonis participated in. As part of the January 4th march and several rallies throughout Ogoni land, the Ogoni protesters and Greenpeace observers held green twigs as a symbol of the environment. With over 3/5 of the Ogonis in Ogoni land assembled together, protest leaders and the protesters demanded their basic rights to the environment and to self-determination. This event has since been referred to as the First Ogoni Day. Soon after the First Ogoni Day, MOSOP set up the One Naira Ogoni Survival Fund, to which men, women, and children contributed money in order to support the Ogoni Bill of Rights and the future struggle against shale oil. MOSOP continued its actions by holding candlelit vigils and further assemblies of protests. After the January 4th actions and further protests throughout the month, shale oil pulled out of the region. This drastically lowered the amount of petroleum being extracted from the region and cut profits to the oil companies operating in the area by $200 million in 1993. Although shale withdrew from the area, pipelines and oil pumps remained and continued to leak and blow out. Shell was called in a number of times to make repairs to the pipes, but the company did nothing. The movement was successful in driving out shale. However, the goal of the Bill of Rights written by the MOSOP were not attained. Protests against the government continued and violence erupted between tribes and against the government. 4 government officials were killed, and although Saro Wiwa was not responsible for the murders, he was executed along with 8 other MOSOP officials in 1995. The MOSOP was successful in driving out shale. However, they were not successful in making a change within the Nigerian government. This is seen in how the government executed Saro Wiwa for an act of violence that he was not responsible for. If Saro Wiwa had not been executed, I believe he would have continued to work towards bringing about change in Nigeria and fighting for the rights of the Ogoni people. Saro Wiwa was similar to Gandhi and Martin Luther King in believing to fight injustice and not the ones doing it. He was also similar to Gandhi and King in fighting without violence in order to portray the cause as civil and just.